Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm your host, Amanda Lamb. In today's deep dive conversation with WRAL investigative reporter Cullen Browder, we're talking about something personal, his departure from Capital Broadcasting, the legacy he leaves behind after a quarter century with WRAL News, and what life looks like for him after television news. Cullen, welcome to the program.
This sounds really boring. Why are we doing this?
Oh, this is not boring. Your fans want to know. They want to know what's next, and I want to know what's next. So let's start back at the beginning. I know that you came to WRAL in 1998, but that's not where your broadcasting career started. So tell us kind of how you got started and how you ended up here.
Well, it's interesting in that I was always interested in current events. I always watched the news, was very interested, but I was afraid to tell people I would be interested in doing that for a career. Even in college, I went to UNC. I just fear of failure possibly, but I didn't want to tell people I would like to do that. So of course that I didn't prepare myself very well. I was sort of a wandering soul in college. My first job out of college was on a processing ship in Alaska.
Wow,
so
really far from journalism.
Exactly. So I didn't, go get an internship, and after a few months, I'm standing waist deep in black cod in the hull of a fishing boat, and I said, I probably need to get a real job. So during college, I had been on an exchange program to the University of New Hampshire. I love New England, so I just went to New England. And then I finally said, okay, if you're going to do this, you need to at least try. So I was able to finagle my way in to a little radio station in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, WFGL, Fitchburg, Gardner, Leominster. And it was literally in an old house. They played big band music through satellite, but they had local announcements, local news. And I was just running the board for a couple months, and then I worked my way into doing news for them.
That's how it all started.
And that's how it started. So then after several months working there, I got a better job at a radio news talk station in Worcester, Mass, WTAG. And it was a great station. I covered Michael Dukakis's run for president in 1988. Great experience. And then I thought, I'd like to tell stories in a different way. And I was able to transition into a local cable operation in 1991, WGMC Channel 3, and they had one newscast a night, and then they would just rerun it.
Now, what town was that in?
In Worcester,
Okay,
Mass.
So I, at that time, was in Portland, Maine, and I also covered the 1992 presidential race and primary. So we may have crossed paths. Who knows?
Might have. So I'm from Tennessee originally. And then I ended up going to Chattanooga. After that, I worked as a one-man band for a while. And then I transitioned, got a little bit better job at WTVC.
For somebody who doesn't know what that is, explain briefly.
Now they call them multimedia journalists, but it's basically you operate the camera, you do the reporting. If you have to do a stand-up, you shoot yourself. You shoot all the interviews. You basically do it all. You edit. And it's great experience, as you well know. It's great experience because when you end up getting to work with a real photographer, it's a blessing.
It's amazing, yeah.
So I worked in Chattanooga for 3 years, I believe, and then I got a job in Indianapolis, Indiana, for the ABC affiliate there, WRTV. And then in 1998, John Harris, the news director here, hired me to start as the anchor reporter for Fox 50 when Capital Broadcasting took over Fox 50.
And that reminds me, you have had so many hats here, right? And you've also won a lot of awards. I'll just name a few of the organizations that have awarded you: the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, Associated Press, the Radio Television Digital News Association of the Carolinas. You've got Emmys. But what I've always been impressed by as your colleague, and also I'd like to call you my friend of many years, is your humility and your diplomacy and how you handle stories. And I loved your quote. I was researching you, and on your bio it said, "Every day I am a student and a teacher." Well, what does that mean to you?
Well, boil down our job. There are so many times where we get assigned a story or something happens and we don't know anything about it. So you got to go to work. You've got to be the student, and you've got to do the research. You've got to talk to people. It's like we've got a term paper every single day, and at the end of the day, you've got to be a teacher. You've got to be able to translate that for our viewers. You may not be the most qualified teacher at the end of the day, but that's the job. And
it's a very short period of time to get that all together.
Right. And I mean, what a huge challenge, but at the same time, what an amazing job to do that.
To be able to learn something new every day. It's kind of, I always look at it like a puzzle. You're taking these pieces and then you're figuring out, how do I put them together in a way that I understand it and other people understand it as well.
And you said humility. I tell people you have to have an ego to do this job, but you better have humility because you're going to look like an idiot more often than you want. May be your fault, may not be your fault, but you're putting yourself out there, you're going live, you're gathering information in a small span of time, and man, it can be stressful. You're going to make mistakes.
And you're opening yourself up to an incredible amount of scrutiny, especially with social media.
And that fear of failure, I mean, it's on
right
your
in front
mind
of you
every day, but you got to power through. That's the job.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be back after the break with more from WRAL's Cullen Browder about a few of his memorable stories and what's next for him. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm talking with WRAL's Cullen Browder about the legacy he leaves behind here as he leaves Capital Broadcasting. So I think choosing your favorite stories is kind of like choosing your favorite child. You can't really do that, but I know you've had a lot of memorable stories over the years and things you're proud of. Tell me some that just really stand out to you.
You're right. It's impossible to say that's my favorite story, but I really have enjoyed, I believe in moments in life, beautiful moments, impactful moments. And I have to cover a lot of, as an investigative reporter, I have to cover a lot of really tough stories, holding people accountable. And in some ways, that's kind of a contradiction in my life because I don't love chasing people across a parking lot. I like to deal with people face to face, be fair, understand their side of things. So this job is tough sometimes. But when I think back to some of the stories that are most memorable to me, one that comes to mind is a series of stories I did over a decade ago on Lois Schulbred. She was dealing with dementia, and her family invited us in to basically understand the struggles, not only of her, but of the entire family. And that really just left a huge mark on my life. And I became very close with Dave Simpson, who invited me in to do that story. Other stories, I did a number of stories on invisible homeless, working people without homes to live. And that was very important to me. Over the years, I've covered a number of scandals. I covered Agriculture Commissioner Meg Scott Phipps and House Speaker Jim Black, Congressman Balance, Kevin Gettings on the Lottery Commission. A lot of people got in big trouble, and I ended up covering them. And
a lot of high-profile cases, that
sure.
stand out. What about? I mean, you've done things as an investigative reporter that have made real change. I mean, that's got to feel good because you don't get to do that in a tangible way in every job, and you don't get to do that every day in this job.
Sure, and we've done stories on nepotism in state government, and people ended up losing their jobs over it. We've done a lot of stories on Medicaid fraud that ended up leading to real investigations where people got in big trouble because they were stealing millions and millions of dollars from taxpayers. I mean, Lord, in the early 2000s, because we talk about it now, but we were doing stories on the state crime lab and the fact that DNA kits, rape kits, were sitting in local police and sheriff's offices, and they weren't getting tested. So
and brought a lot of awareness to that.
Sure, and we were doing those kinds of stories, over 20 years ago.
So much has changed in this business. I mean, obviously, you and I are around the same age, so we've seen the same changes, including the internet and how that's changed our business and social media. What are some of the biggest changes that you think have impacted what we do, and how do you tell future journalists how to navigate this world now?
This is when you feel really old because you're telling people, when I started, we didn't have cell phones
Or computers.
No, we didn't have. I literally, my first job was working on a manual typewriter.
With the mimeograph sheets with the ink in between, and you would rip off the different pages for the director and for the anchors and so on and so forth.
You had the AP machine that was spitting out AP copy in the newsroom, and everybody was smoking everywhere. And
the good old days.
the good old days.
Yeah.
But you mentioned social media. I mean, clearly the internet changed everything, and it's amazing the kind of research we can do with just even a little Google search. And social media has changed everything, and it's one. I don't know. I think it's more. It has done wonders. It's the whole cliche blessing and a curse. It's
right.
Absolutely, because it just gives people a license to say anything and everything they want to say. The core, and I hope you'll agree with me, of what we do is about people, relationships, understanding. I mean, you can get all the emails, you can get all these public documents, but ultimately what we do boils down to people.
Talking to people. And listening.
And listening. That is the biggest part of our job, is listening. We have to talk for a living, but man, we can't get there unless we're listening to what the story really is.
Yeah, I mean, I've been teaching journalism this past semester, and I think one of the things I told my students is, the core values of what we do have not changed, even with the internet. And I remember back in the day, we used to have a phrase that news doesn't happen in the newsroom. And, you'd see people at their desks working the phones and doing all this stuff, but really you just have to go. And I remember one time looking through a phone book, trying to find phone numbers. And I finally just said to our assignment editor, Brad Green at the time, I said, I'm just going to go. Just going to go to the town where this happened. I'm going to knock on doors. I'm going to go to the general store. And honestly, I still believe today that is the best way to cover news, is you go to a place and you talk to people and you just boots on the ground.
No question about it. And so many of the stories that we have covered over the years have started from a conversation you had with someone in a hallway. It's like, oh, really? No, tell me more about that. It's just that has... People don't understand the importance of those candid conversations, hearing something from someone else. Oh, I'll follow up on that. And then it turns into something very important.
So, Cullen, big question that everybody wants to know. What is next for you?
Excellent question. And the bottom line is I truly don't know, other than the fact that I'm taking the summer off with my wife, Ela. She's a community college professor, and we're taking the summer off, and then I'm going to figure it out. And I know I'm not trying to be deceptive. I'm having conversations with some people, but I truly don't know. My plan is to have a life reset and just sort of shut down, and then figure it out. I've told you this analogy of where I am in my life, but I feel like for decades I've been on this big ship it's safe, it's moving along just fine. I can see land in the distance, and I think I'm going to jump out and swim. It's just where I am in my life, and I want people to understand that I am doing this from a place of gratitude. I'm not angry. I'm not some old guy who's disgruntled. I'm truly in a calm place, a place in my heart that I truly feel nothing but gratitude for this company, for Capital Broadcasting, WRAL. I feel like I've cared about this industry, the people I've covered, and that's not changed, but I'm a little restless, and it's time for a change in my life, and I feel fortunate that I can make this change at this point.
And it's kind of exciting in a way not to know.
It is. And I sort of look at it to when I was graduating for college and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I went to Alaska, and something out of the ordinary. I want to be a reliable person, but I don't always want to be predictable. I want.
Very good point. And your family's okay with this. I know you're an empty nester, so.
Yes, well, kind of an empty nester, but yes. Yes, Ela has been incredibly supportive of my decision. Of course, we've made this decision together, and she's excited for me, and I'm excited. And, I may be delivering packages to your home one day, but I don't know.
Or
I don't
coffee.
know. Coffee, I can pour beer as well. I worked as a waiter for a long time, but seriously, I'm in a thankful place, and I'm happy, and I'm so appreciative of my years here and my career that I've had for 36 years, but I'm just ready to try something else.
Well, that sounds exciting, and I can't wait to see where you land. Final question. What are you going to miss the most?
You.
Oh, thanks.
Well,
good answer. That's the right answer. That's what I paid you for.
It's clearly the people. Man, we work around so many smart people who care, and we love telling stories. We love trying to do right by our viewers, and being around this team. Man, this is the ultimate team sport. People think, well, you're just on camera, you're doing it all yourself. Man, there's so many people behind the scenes who are working with us and helping us make these decisions. And I'll miss that, but I don't plan on leaving the area, and I hope to maintain, the relationships that I've built. And again, I'm excited, but I'm going to miss the people.
Well, we are absolutely going to miss you, and thank you for being a respected colleague and someone that I definitely learned a lot from over the years, especially when it comes to diplomacy and humility. So thank you for your friendship, and thank you for your mentorship to me and others. And again, you will absolutely be missed.
Well, let me just say that I value you as a colleague and as a friend, and I've been fortunate that you and I have been able to work together for so long.
Yep, the old guard, changing of the guard,
right.
Changing of the
That's
guard.
Right.
Well, thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and making us part of your morning routine. If you like what you're hearing, please rate us on Apple Podcasts or on whatever podcast app you use. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email waiting in your inbox every morning with Triangle news events and headlines to get you ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.